Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Today is World Read Aloud Day. And today I am going to be reading to you from Step by Step, Book 3 by Jill Matthews, the publisher, Hodder Education. So, my story today is The Land Beneath the Clouds. Long, long ago, in a far-off country, there lived a race of people just like you and me. They had brown, glossy skins and thick black hair, and they loved listening to stories just like you. However, their homeland was very different from this lush island of ours. In their country, the rain had stopped falling. All day long, the sun blazed down, making the ground dry, cracked, and dusty. The crops struggled to grow. The fruit trees withered. The forest turned brown and the animals disappeared. The rivers dried up and the fish died. Eventually, the birds were nearly all gone too. The desperate people had to search further and further afield each day for things to eat. One morning, a young hunter was stalking through new territory when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He had nearly fallen into a big hole. Yet the hole was not dark and muddy at the bottom. It was white and swirling, just like the clouds. The hunter lay on his stomach and crawled forwards to peer over the edge. As the clouds moved, the hunter's eyes opened wide with surprise. Way down below there was a deep green sea. No, it was not a sea. It was the waving leaves of treetops. The hunter could not believe his eyes. Far underneath the leaves, he could just glimpse tiny animals and the sparkling blue of a stream. The hunter jumped to his feet in shock and ran home like the wind. When the thrilled hunter told the chief and elders about the lovely green land he had found, there was an uproar in the village. "He has gone mad with hunger," some people scoffed. "But what if it is true?" others protested. "We could leave this dying place behind." "There might be all sorts of dangers down there," cried others fearfully. The people sat and argued about what to do until long after the moon had sailed up into the sky. Finally, the chief stood up and raised his hand for silence. "Tomorrow we will go and see for ourselves," the chief announced. "If the land exists, we will find a way to go and explore it. If we stay here, we will surely die." Early next morning, the young hunter eagerly strode out with the chief. Every man, woman, and child followed nervously behind. They carried heavy bundles of belongings, and many of them were grumbling. The villagers walked for hours through the blazing sun until at last they were near the spot. "Over there," the hunter cried excitedly. "Go and look." At once, the wary people dropped everything and raced over to the strange hole. They crowded around, pushing and jostling, crying out in disbelief at the wonderful world below the swirling clouds. Then they burst into tears of joy and danced with delight. Next, the hard work began. The men and children rushed away in all directions to find vines and creepers. The women wound and plaited them together until their hands were sore. Eventually, they had a long, long rope. Everyone watched in silence as the chief solemnly laid hundreds of coils of rope on the ground next to the hole. He tied one end tightly to a huge rock and let the other end go tumbling down through the clouds. The coils immediately began to slither away. Faster and faster they slipped through the hole. The people watched the rope anxiously, hoping that it would be long enough. Finally, the rope had unraveled. Who would be the first person to venture into the unknown? The young hunter stepped forward and slung his bow and arrows onto his back. "I will go first," he said bravely. He grasped the rope firmly and slid down the clouds. The people waited and waited, and finally they heard a faint call. "Come down, it is safe!" One by one, every man, woman, and child climbed down the long, long rope. As they emerged from the clouds, a fantastic scene met their eyes. The new world was more beautiful than anyone had imagined. Oranges, bananas, and mangoes dangled from the trees. Deer nibbled at luscious green bushes. Cattle wandered through tall sugarcane. Insects hummed around perfumed flowers. Rainbow-colored birds darted overhead, chirping merrily. Fish leaped in clear streams. "We will stay here until the rains come back to our own land," the chief sighed with happiness. The people whooped for joy and ran away to explore the wonderful land. Everyone fell in love with their new home. Everyone, that is, except one woman. She had always been miserable and never wanted to join the others. All she could do was complain. The flowers were too bright, the rain was too wet, the animals frightened her, and there were strange noises at night. Her friends became so fed up that they stopped talking to her, but the woman didn't care. "I do not need you," she muttered to herself. "I shall go back home and live happily on my own." One night, she returned to the spot where the rope still dangled from the sky. Up she went, huffing and puffing right up to the hole in the clouds. Strange, she thought, as she stuck her head and one arm through. "I do not remember the hole being this small." She wriggled her other arm through and then her shoulders. She pushed and heaved, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not budge. The reason for this, of course, was that the woman had grown fat from all the wonderful things she had eaten on earth. She was jammed tight in the hole. She could not go up and she could not go down. Everyone was secretly relieved. They did not want to go back anyway. And that is how humans came to join the animals living on the islands of the Caribbean.